If you read this book and apply the principles, you can work a 9-to-5 job and by the time you're 50, 60, become a millionaire.
He says time in the market is better than trying to time the market.
This is a question for the viewers. Is gold a good investment?
Controversial. Before you go any further, I just want to say disclaimer, this is not financial advice.
Leasing cars could be $1 million decision. Just by leasing a car, you could potentially be losing $1 million.
Tyler,
as a book.
Blasphemy. No, you can't do that. No. Come again, bruv. No, you're not doing that. No, you're not doing that. No. It's the first time, no.
Welcome to the Power of Pages, where we review books that ignite your mind,
elevate your life,
and drive your ambition. And this episode, we are reviewing The Millionaire Teacher by Andrew Hallams. And I go by Ty.
I'm Mr. Fly.
And this was your pick,
Yes.
this episode. Why did you pick The Millionaire Teacher as a book to read?
I picked it because a friend of mine actually recommended this to me. We were talking about money and finances and investing, all these sort of things. And they said, yeah, they just recently read this book and it helped them in their financial journey. So I bought this. I mean, it's the second time I've read this book. So I've read this book quite a while ago now. But yeah, because it's very important. I mean, money is important one way or another, you know, whether you need it to function, to somewhere to live, for your family, all this sort of thing. So it's important. So, and also what's more important than money is actually money management. Because as the book shows, you don't necessarily need a lot of money to live a lifestyle, whatever lifestyle you want to live, but it's important that you know how to manage your money. Financial education is important for whether you're a young person, an elderly person, whatever you are. So that's why. Yeah,
okay. Do you think as a society or as a culture, we learn enough about money and are educated enough on finances in like school and college and throughout, growing up?
Is that a trick question? It's joking. No, but before you go any further, I just want to say disclaimer. This is not financial advice.
Yes. Good point.
So yeah, this is just but no, do I think? Nah, not really. I think the way, I don't want to go that way with the conversation, but the way that the system is and the way that we're taught in schools and whatnot, it's not really highlighted about how to manage your money properly or enough. You know, I think, and to be honest with you, I think I was speaking to one of the youth workers that work with us yesterday, and this is what we kind of call like further education. So I think like people like ourselves, people like what we do, is important that we do that further education, because just because the schools aren't teaching it, okay, then that's our responsibility to teach, because it's important. You need to know how to manage your money at the end of the day. You need to know how to manage your money in the story.
Okay.
So,
and I think I'll say this book can really help anyone learn how to manage their money and provide some tools to help them better understand how money works, how to invest money, and how to not squander it.
No. And I think as well, like, again, because on a deeper sort of one as well, the way the world is at the moment, especially on things like platforms, like social media platforms, and the narrative that's out there, especially for males, especially young males, I think it's like if you don't have money if you don't have money or show that you have money, you're kind of low value and all this kind of nonsense rhetoric that's out there. So I think this goes away to challenging that and can kind of reassure people that, okay, this is the way to manage your money, because that in that moment of where people are kind of trying to make you feel like insecure about your finances or your financial situation, then there's an opportunity for people to come in and try and sell you products or sell you things.
Yeah.
You know, especially with things, you know, like with things online, things like trading, all these other sort of things. It's been gamified by platforms and whatnot, which is very dangerous. Because, you know, personally, myself, when I was younger, you know, I've lost a lot of money through ill information. And there's people around me, even in the older ages, that they've just lost money through bad information. And this book was written before the era of like cryptocurrency and stuff. But if it was written in that era, he would have definitely spoke about it as well. So yeah, man, there's a lot of risks. You have your money today, people trying to take it from you. So you need to know how to protect your money and protect your family and your interests. I don't know, what do you think? Yeah,
I mean, well, this book was written in 2016, I believe, or maybe earlier. I think, around that time. This I think is the second edition. Okay. But yeah, it's written quite a while ago. But yeah, I don't think we're educated enough growing up yeah, I've made maybe some wrong financial decisions.
Yeah, yeah.
As you do, you learn from your mistakes.
Learn from your mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, not everyone does.
Yeah,
They try and double down.
Yeah.
But yeah, the important thing is to learn from your mistakes. But I think reading this book, if I had read this book years ago, maybe I wouldn't have made some of those mistakes, because the theory behind this book, which I love, is extremely simple.
Yeah.
If you read this book and apply the principles, in theory, you can work a 9-to-5 job and by the time you're 50, 60, become a millionaire, which is crazy. And you think, I mean, if I was to work, a salaried job and have a salaried income, I wouldn't necessarily think that I could achieve wealth unless I was on an extreme high salary. Whereas this book, with the right investment strategy and over a long period of time, you can get rich. So this book, if you read it, this book will make you rich. No, that's the clickbait clip.
Can make you
That's the clip. But it can. And I think I want to touch on his story because my girlfriend jokes with me about this, because she says, I love a struggle story.
Yeah, you?
Yeah, she says, me, you love a struggle story. Like, why do you love the struggle so much? Like, why do people have to struggle? Yeah. And he has a struggle story. And I don't love a struggle story. I love someone having a struggle story and overcoming that struggle. I don't necessarily love the struggle. I love the fact that they've put themselves in that and then overcome it. And the author did that. Which I found really inspiring. And I guess to touch on, he was working in a school, and correct me if I'm wrong, he was working in a school, he was a teacher, and he was earning a salary.
He was also tutoring as well, I think.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And he was basically penny pinching to invest his money. And he was staying in like the cheapest accommodation. He was cycling like a crazy amount of distance to work, and cycling a crazy amount of distance to home just so that he didn't have fuel costs. And he was just simply investing that money. And I don't know what age it was.
I don't think he says,
Okay.
I don't think, because I know what you're talking about.
But he eventually became a millionaire after 20, 30 years of investing while working as a teacher. And he didn't struggle like forever. He had a period of time, few years, where he lived like really low maintenance. He didn't have high expenses, and he just invested his money continuously, and now he's reaped the rewards. In fact, I've got it here. He rode the bike to work, 70-mile round trip. No, listen, to think of that. So I think as well, like, what he did was extreme, because 70 miles cycling is crazy. Like, there was a time in my life I used to cycle to work 10 miles and 10 miles back, which for me at the time was like, that's long enough. That's 35 miles there, 35 miles back, just so that he could save on fuel. And he even said, like, in the book, his colleagues probably thought that he was broke, like, because of his lifestyle. But yeah, I just found that really like...
Well, look, he was extreme because he wanted extreme results at the same time. And he was patient. There's a lot of like fundamental values that you can take from even that story, because he was patient. And that's a problem that we see now. Everybody wants that instant gratification. Like you said, if you want to, through investing, you can get to that millionaire status if that's what you want to achieve, but it's going to take you 20, 30 years maybe. Do you know what I mean, to get there? Are you patient enough to stick to the plan for 20 or 30 years? Or are you going to try and take risky things? If it's too good, if it sounds too good to be true, it normally is. But now the way, because everybody wants it yesterday. Obviously with himself, he was like, okay, he had a plan, he worked out what he was trying to do, and he put a strategy in place, and he worked. He said, yeah, I'm going to ride that 70 miles. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I know he spoke about cars. He just broke everything down. And again, extreme, but again, extreme results. Do you know what I mean? So, at the end of the book, it talks about his lifestyle now. Him and his wife, they're digital nomads, I think. And that's what he was working for. So when he was cycling and his legs were burning or whatever he was going through at the time, he knew where he wanted to get to. So, you can take. So that's an inspiring story.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
an inspiring story. Yeah, real talk.
There's a part that I want to touch on, because this is I think what the section's called. Leasing cars could be $1 million decision. Just by leasing a car, you could potentially be losing $1 million. And I loved the way that he broke that section down because of the expenses of leasing a car. He talks about actually everyone should be buying like a second-hand used car. Like as soon as you buy a car from the showroom, it loses value. And yeah, everyone should be, if you need to drive, buying a second-hand used car and not leasing a car, because those monthly installments that you're paying could in fact be used to be invested, and that investment over a long enough period of time could make you a millionaire.
Yeah, it's all like, you know, we're going to talk about it in compound interest, compounding. It's the margins. You know, he's very like, when we get into when he's talking about investing and different investment portfolios that you have, that we'll get onto, you know, literally the difference of 1%, you know, if you're being charged an annual fee of 1% versus 2%, you know, maybe it's not a big deal, but over a 20-year period, that extra percentage can cost you, like it makes, and again, it compounds.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? So that's what he's very looking at the margins, and obviously he's a numbers guy.
Yeah.
So he's looking at it very stringently. What are the numbers saying? Okay, if I can save X amount of percentage on the you know, lease, on the interest from leasing this car, cover that by 10 years, 15. He's looking 10 years, 15 years down the lens.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I don't do that. Like most people don't.
Yeah.
But again, extreme behavior, extreme results. And it goes both ways. Because if you're on the other side of the coin, where you're just frivolous with your cash and you're not paying no, you know, you're very living a very like exuberant lifestyle, spending money here, spending money there, extreme in that sense. 15 years down the line, what's that going to say?
Yeah.
You know, are you going to have money because you can't work forever?
Yeah.
You can't. So what are you going to have 15 years? So are you living your best life now? What's it going to be in 15 years, 20 years? Depending on your age, obviously. Do you know what I mean? So this is the kind of mindset, these are the questions we need to ask. But even before that as well, it's all for me, and talking from like personal experience, what I've seen from people around me, if you, and we spoke about this even on like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, he touches on this. If you don't have financial education, you're doomed. I don't, like in this society we live in now, because the way things are, government and X, Y, Z, the way society is, no one's really gonna look at, again, we're not gonna get political, but I know there's been a change in government, and there's been a change on, I think, the winter fuel, they've made a change, on, you know more about this than me. But, so you have to really look after yourself. And the way you do that is you need to look after yourself in the future. Now. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, and then that's what we're talking about, the compound
Prepare
interest.
for the future.
Prepare, thank you. So I think it's critical, man, especially like I work with a lot of young people, a lot of young men, and then I hear, you know, I know we see what's going on with their mentality, choices they make, serving them now. Yeah. That same choice you're making now, is that going to serve you in 15 years when you maybe have a child or you've got a family, or you know, and you're taking these risks? And that's not even necessarily talking about illegal behaviour. Even with like trading, and I think trading, that's another one. Though I think if you're a young person, if you're a young person, stay away from trading. Avoid trading. Stay away. Yeah. Stay away. And that is financial advice. No, but seriously. So, but I think because these are risks, because like to go on to, like talk about trading specifically, what people don't understand, a lot of people don't understand, is you might see a course and do a little course, or you see something online or whatever you do, and you're just stepping into trading with zero experience. You're trading against the best traders in the world. You look at a phone and you do this and you do that. You've got to think of it, it's like if someone had said, oh, here's a tennis racket, here's a tennis ball, just here, give you an hour of a little tennis lesson. That's like you going to the Wimbledon final and trying to play against Federer. That's the way, like, it's that. That's the way I see it anyway. It's like, you would never do that. But risky, dangerous, you know. But again, you have to learn, like you said, we all learn from experience. I've definitely been burned in the past. I've learned from my experiences. I've seen people, like I said, people around to me, like because of that lack of financial education, you just get taken advantage of. Yeah. That's the bottom line, so it's important. You touched on it a minute ago, compound interest, and I want to provide some stats that he gives in the book, because he says if you invested $100 at 10% interest, after 5 years,
that $100 would be worth $161.05. After 20 years, that $100 would be $672. After 50 years, that $100 would be $11,739. And after 100 years, that $100 would be worth $1,378,061.23. Now, of course, most of us, well, aren't going to live to 100. We're not going to see that. But that investment, yeah, speak for myself. But that $100 investment, that could go on to your family or whoever in the future, and that's just $100. Now,
sorry to cut you, but people talk a lot about generational wealth.
Yeah.
Look how simple it is to achieve.
Yeah.
So carry on.
Yeah, for our future great-grandchildren, we could support them now by investing $100 and just leaving it. Well, providing we get 10% interest each year, but that's crazy, right? Yeah. We could set them up for the future. But I think a lot of people don't know how to invest and don't even know where to get started, which I think is a big issue.
And that's where they get taken advantage of.
Yes. But that, just to touch on that point again, that's just $100. If that was $1,000 now, if that was $10,000, if you invested $100 every month, as we mentioned, that compounds over time, it builds up, it eventually grows and grows and grows. And that's the power of compound interest and investing in the right areas.
Talking about compounding, obviously we've done a review on a book, The Compound Effect. So if you kind of want a bit more understanding about what compounding is, maybe go back and check out that review.
Yeah.
But yeah, he uses like, so he goes through rules. Like on the book, it's rule 1, rule 2. I think there's 9 rules altogether about how to he's mentoring you or teaching you how to become a millionaire. You know, it's not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Yeah.
But you know, compound interest, he says, start investing straight away, which I think is, again, is critical. It's investing. Like start investing, pick your investments wisely, he actually gives you the full play of where to invest or how to invest. And he calls it the Noah principle, as in start investing straight away. So that's like, see, with Noah's Ark, he was preparing for the flood before the flood.
Yeah.
So it's not like, okay, the rain's coming now, let me start trying to build the boat now, the ark now, it's too late. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's what he calls it. So start straight away. Even with £100, £10, £50, £1, whatever you have, just start investing. Then again, as you get older, you know, things like pay off your credit cards before because you have to learn to play the game a little bit. Pay off your credit cards before the interest kicks in. Yeah. Because as Tyler just showed, that interest is taken away. That money you're paying on interest could be paid, could be saved, could be invested. And then also something which has helped me a lot personally is like dollar cost averaging. So what that is essentially is when you're investing, you're buying, say you're investing £100 every month. That's your investment strategy, £100 every month. Sometimes the stock price is high, sometimes the stock price is low. So, for example, if every stock costs £1 and you spend £100, you're going to buy 100 shares in that. But next month, the stock price might go down to 50 pence, or sorry, £50. So now you're getting double your money, basically. So over a long length of time, normally dollar cost averaging is better than trying to time the market. It's a bit technical, but I hope I've explained it well enough. But basically, dollar cost averaging, again, if you want to find out more about it, just research it. But that's a good way. You're just consistently investing over time, the same amount every month. Some months you'll get more, some months you'll get less. But over a long period of time, you typically get more than you get more for your money. Yeah. And those are the kind of main rules that he kind of says to start yourself off with. Yeah, absolutely. And he talks about financial advisors because, you know, if we need help with our finances, it only makes sense that we want to speak to a financial advisor. Logically, right? Yeah. Surely, I've thought that in the past. It's financial advisors, but then I think it's like managers or fund managers is what he's talking about more specifically. So like, because they're different. So you've got a financial advisor as a general, but then he's talking about people that manage your stocks or invest your stocks. I forget what he calls it now, but fund managers I think he goes to. But carry on. Well, in theory, we think that's a good thing, right? But at the end of the day, it's a job for them. They're there to make money off you. So they might be financially advising you, and brokers. They're brokers. So their job is to, try and guide you to make money, but in a way that they also make money. And
he kind of poo-poos financial advisors and just says you don't need a financial advisor.
I think it's more so fund managers.
Fund managers, yeah.
It's more so fund managers.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry.
So yeah. Anyway, the point I'm making is they're there to make money off you, and I think there's a few examples that he gives in the book about like the banks. He set people up in different parts to go to the bank and say, right, I want to invest money, and they've all tried to set the participants up with the fund that makes the bank the most money, not the fund that makes the individual the most money. And
they're selling products.
Yeah.
They're selling products. And this is where, again, going to that financial education, because if you go to if you're somebody who doesn't know anything about money or investing or stocks, you know, I use myself as an example in the past, you go in, you ask the person who's in position to tell you, and you assume they've got your best interest, your best interest, but they've essentially got their best interest. I think not necessarily because some financial advisors, they just give advice, so you can pick and choose. But with fund managers, if they're saying, no, buy this stock, sort of like Wolf of Wall Street sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like, buy this stock in this because this is going to make you the most money. It's not necessarily the case. And then, you know, we've danced around it. You know, index funds is what he talks about. You know, and he basically feels that, or it's shown that index funds over time always beat like stock picking. You know, so stock picking essentially is, I'm going to invest in, I don't know, Nike today. Like, that's me just making a decision. I'm going to invest in that. I'm going to invest in that. So you're picking what stocks you're going to invest in yourself. Again, using that example of Roger Federer versus a novice tennis player, is that really the smartest thing to do? Versus if you put your money in an index invests your money across the top X. So the S&P 500 is the top 500 companies in America. So your money's being spread across those 500 companies, and they have to hit a certain threshold to be in that S&P 500. So, and if they fall out of that, let's say it's 100 million a year they have to make. If they make less than that, okay, the next company that does it gets replaced. So your money's just in that index, and that's it. It's actually quite simple, but that's the problem. It's too simple, because people we want to overcomplicate things. We want to make like we're smart and you know. And I see, I've got friends that are investing, and again, if you know what you're doing, go for it. If you have the time as well, that's, you know, another thing is it takes a lot of time to investigate and do your research about the different stocks. There's so much to take into account. So much to take into account. Not just by the time you've seen it on Instagram, or by the time you've seen it on YouTube, it's too late. It's too late. You're now, you know, you've got the curve, I forget what it's called, but you've got the laggards and you've got the early adopters and whatnot. You're already on the top of the curve. You're too late. It's too late. It's about not necessarily, but in general. So it's quite risky, and it just takes. Do you have the time? He calls it a couch potato strategy. You know, that's what he kind of says. Very simple. We can even end it now. Invest in indexes. Seriously, that's the story. Obviously, we won't, but you get my point.
Can we explain a little bit more what an index fund is? Like, I know we've touched on it, but essentially, you mentioned the S&P 500 and how it has the top 500 companies, and if the company in 500 doesn't perform well, the company in 501 gets moved up into that fund. So your investment essentially is with the best companies in the world. So in theory, it will continue to grow. So I guess the question I'm asking is, what is an index fund in the most simple terms? I
think, again, I'm not an expert on this, so do your own research, literally. But from my understanding, what I get from the book is your money is just invested in the top companies in an index. So a bunch of companies together, your money is invested in those companies. You've got stocks, you've got shares in those companies, and that's basically it. And then over time, and again, we talk about dollar cost averaging. If you're consistently adding money to that fund yourself, then you're buying more shares every month or whatever your frequency is. So there's different providers. You know, he talks about Vanguard. You know, I personally invest in Vanguard, but there's a lot of different indexes. But again, it's very. That's what I mean. It's very complicated.
It's very complicated.
You know, it's very technical. But in a nutshell, you're investing your money in a group of companies. That's the kind of best way I can sympathize it. That I can kind of put it out there.
Okay.
But if you're interested, just do your own research, and that's where financial advisors. That's why they're different from fund managers, because a financial advisor would actually explain to you what an index is. They may recommend different index, because there's more than one type of index. You know, I know that, what's his name? The best investor in the world now. Charlie Munger.
No, I know who you're talking about. Exactly. Why can't I remember his name?
Anyway, Berkshire Hathaway, which is his own index. There's different indexes, but in the book he recommends in Vanguard.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you live in the UK.
Yeah.
There's lots of different types.
You know, Vanguard, if you're watching, you should be sponsoring this episode. And again, this isn't financial advice. Again, I personally have used Vanguard, and you can actually call them up and, you know, ask for advice and help, or ask them to explain what the different funds are. So they're very helpful, because I called them once and, you know, was asked, oh, I've got my money here, like, yeah, I want to move it here, it's whatever. So they're actually very helpful. So maybe I'll put a link in the description box just for you to check it out. Again, this is not a sponsored video. This is not financial advice. This is just what...
It's two guys talking about a book we read.
It's two guys talking about a book we read. And actually, my understanding is that over a 10-year period in investing in an index fund, there has not been a time in history where you would have lost money.
Oh, wow.
Over a 10-year period. Yeah. So over shorter periods, in some cases, maybe. Some years the market does bad. So if all the top 500 companies do bad, then potentially your money might be less than what you invested. But over a 10-year period, my understanding is that there hasn't been a time in history where your investment is lower than what you would have put in. So if you're in it for the long run, the data speaks for itself in terms of index funds.
Again, patience, isn't it?
Patience, yeah.
Warren Buffett.
Yeah. I want to touch on Donald Trump. Warren Buffett is the investor. Buffett, that's the, I want to touch on Donald Trump and just in terms of his investments, because there's a story he mentioned about Donald Trump, and he mentioned that if he talks about his net worth and how much he claims to be worth, and I believe he claims that he's worth 8.7 billion. That's what he claims that at the time of the book. Maybe it's different now, but that's what he claimed. And he said if Donald Trump, when he got his initial 500 million at the start, when he started investing and whatnot, if he had just invested it in an S&P index fund, over 33 years, instead of having 8.7 billion, he would have 17.1 billion. So over double what he has or is reported to have, just by having it in an index fund and not in different stocks, which I thought...
It's too simple, T.
It's too simple.
It's too simple, and you've got to be patient. That's the thing as well, you know. Even like I said, I've been investing in indexes now for quite a while, and even now, you know, you hear, especially now with like AI, there's stocks that you hear about that are doing really well, that are really outperforming and whatnot, and like even I still have the temptation to like, you know what, let me just it's just a little book. Like, whatever. No, I do. It's natural. It's natural. But you know, I just fight that because my rationale is, well, the index I'm with is mostly investing in that anyway. So I've actually already invested in that. I was literally having this conversation with my friend the other day. He's like, oh, do this. There's one particular fund which I'm not going to say, into stock. And he's like, oh, you know, invest in this. AI, they do chips. If you know, you might know what I'm talking about. It's like, oh, yeah, they've done this. And it's good. They're performing. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. But then I was like, then I have to have this is my inner conversation. Yeah. You know, I go by the values. I go by the morals. So you know what? And the reality of it is, if we're talking about it, and I've seen it on these YouTube channels and people, because I am interested in it. I watch a lot of videos and whatnot about stocks and investing. It's something I'm interested in. I'm like, telling me Vanguard don't know this. Telling me they didn't know this before it even happened. So the money's already, so I'm actually already invested in it. So, do you know what I mean? But the thing is, you don't get that emotional high of watching again. It's gamified on your phone. Ooh, you know, I invested in that today, and that's what we get with crypto. Yeah. You know?
I want to come on to the emotions in a moment, but before I come on to the emotions, this has made me think about an analogy he uses, which I really liked, called the dog on a leash analogy. I really like this analogy because every stock is tied to a business, just like a dog on a leash has to return to its owner.
Yeah.
So you've got a dog, you're out for the walk. The dog might go running however far away, 20, 30 meters, but it's still on the leash, especially you've got one of them fancy leashes that extend. But the dog always has to come back to its owner. And the stocks rely on the business itself. So as much as a stock goes up and continues to go up, there's still a business behind it that has to perform. They have to then get more staff in because their company's doing better. They might have business struggles that are linked to that stock. And I really liked how he broke that down in that segment, like using the dog on a leash as an analogy, because it really helped you to think, put it into perspective.
Yeah. No, because the way he talks about it is, sometimes, and it does happen, is where the stock price will exceed the business growth.
Yeah.
So, you know, examples like obviously, well, not obviously, there was a time with GameStop previously, but there's always a correction at times. So, and that correction is when the dog's now being pulled back, because the business growth is going crazy, or not going anywhere, not going where it's supposed to be going, but the stock price is going crazy. So, but eventually it's a matter of time, and the time frame could be whatever it is. But if the stock price is exceeding the business growth, there's going to come a point, because if the business isn't growing, people are going to start looking and say, well, we've been investing in this for X amount of years and there's been no growth. They haven't done the changes within management. They haven't got the right CEO. They haven't infrastructure, whatever it might be. So eventually the business stops growing. It's going to have a knock-on effect to the stock price at some point. And that's the dog now returning back to where it needs to be. And that's where people lose money.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good analogy.
No, I love that one. Now, we mentioned emotion, because he talks about emotions in investing, because like you said, when there's a hype around it, people are like, let's invest.
Yeah. We've all been there.
We've all been there, yeah. I've been caught up in the hype before. And he talks about the average investor. The average investor feels good about their fund when the price increases, so they start to buy more.
Yes.
Oh, my stock's going up, let me buy more because it's continuing to go up. But they feel bad when the price is decreasing. But actually, he talks about that's actually the best time, especially in the index funds, when the price is going down, that's the best time in theory to buy it, because it's going to go back up. History shows us that over a long enough period of time. But it doesn't feel good to invest when it's going down. If you put £100 in, then it starts to go down to 98, 97, and you're like, oh.
But this is where, again, if you're stock picking and you're just trying to invest in individual funds yourself, you're going to react.
Yeah.
Because you're not a full-time professional investor.
Yeah.
So if you're just seeing, because X stock is going crazy now, again, that's the worst time to buy.
Yeah.
And again, if the stock's going down and you say, wow, this stock is undervalued, because you've done your research and you can see the business growth is really good, like, oh, they've invested in this, they're now going to this country and they're doing this. So they've got the channels in line. All right, at the moment, the stock price is down, but because you've done the research and you understand how things work, you now make a decision and say, you know what, this is undervalued. This stock's really worth 3 times what it's worth.
Yeah.
So now it's on sale. It's on sale, so I'm going to invest more. But how much? Who has I'm not capable of doing that.
Yeah.
You need to. There's a lot of research that goes to make those decisions full time.
And it's speculation at the end of the day. We don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
The tried and tested method is the index fund over a long enough period of time.
It beats stock picking.
It beats stock picking all the time.
I think because he says time in the market is better than trying to time the market.
Yes.
It's funny because when
Whoa. Say that again, man.
Okay.
Come on, that's a bar.
Okay. Time in the market is better than trying to time the market. So essentially, get that money in there. Get that money in there as soon as possible, instead of trying to time it and trying to be like, I'm gonna invest when this goes down. I'm gonna wait for this to hit that point and whatnot. So that's basically what he's saying. It was interesting because with that, I remember that. I don't remember the stat, but I remember that part of the book, and I was like. Again, this comes down to your money, how you kind of view money. Maybe it's still investing, but in regards to stocks and shares and indexes and whatnot. Because someone could advise that it's actually better to leverage your money and not just say if you had £10,000, instead of just putting that £10,000 straight into the index, which isn't a bad thing to do. The more money you have, the more options you have, and you don't. So, but again, this is where, but if you are able to kind of have a grown-up conversation about it and not be emotional and think that, oh, you know, that 10, I want to spend that on this holiday, or I want to do this, or I want to take these risks, and actually have a financial strategy, I think it can apply to your strategy. But in regards to like investing in stocks and indexes, you know, I was surprised when he said that, because I forgot that part of the book, and I thought it would have been, but you need to be very disciplined to say, all right, for every month, for 10 months, if it was £10,000, I'm going to invest £1,000 every month, because then, you know, you're going to benefit from, or you'd assume you'd benefit from dollar cost averaging and whatnot. But, you know, that's why it's good to, it's just interesting. It's just interesting.
Yeah. One of the things that I liked as well was he talked about the target retirement fund. Yeah. And this is a type of index fund where you say you want to retire at a certain age, and you just keep putting money in to that retirement fund. And actually what happens is, as the fund gets older and you get closer to that target retirement date, the risk that they have reduces. So you might have a lot of, my understanding anyway, you might have higher risk index funds, and then later down the line you might have more bonds. We haven't touched on bonds yet.
So you have, there's a ratio normally.
Yes.
So you have a ratio of stocks and you have a ratio of bonds. So then the bonds is basically, it's a loan, it's safer, it's a loan you give to the government. And provided that the government is a balanced and safe government, you know, it's quite secure, but obviously the returns are lower.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'd have a ratio of, let's say it was 50-50, that's quite a safe one. 50% in stocks, 50% in bonds.
Yeah.
And again, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, so when you start out, it might actually be 80% in stocks,
that's quite risky,
and 20% in bonds. And then as you get older and you get towards the target retirement age, even maybe in the last year, it might be 80% bonds and 20% stocks. I don't know the exact, but go on.
Because this was an interesting one recommendation he makes is that bond allocation should be roughly equivalent to your age percentage wise. So minus 10. So if you want to risk your portfolio, you minus 20. So for example, if you're 40, you'll have 40% or 20% in bonds, and then the remaining 70 or 80 in stocks. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of what he kind of recommends, that.
Yeah.
What I just said.
So if you're 60, you'd have 60% in bonds and 40% in stocks. Yeah.
Okay. It's safer.
Yeah.
As you get older.
So that's a nice framework to follow. But I've actually found that chapter quite self-gratifying, because I have a target retirement fund that I've put money into, and I just liked that it made me feel like I made the right decision. You know, it was like an ego stroke, this book's telling me I did the right thing. So yeah, anyway, that.
No, I mean, in that chapter, just being about responsible, it says the chapter or rule 5, build mountains of money with a responsible portfolio. So hence we're talking about bonds. And also, I touched on it a little bit before, but the global couch potato portfolio. And that's just kind of your money, because even there's more than one type of index, there's more than one index provider. Obviously we spoke about Vanguard, there's others out there.
Yeah.
What, if you are kind of trying to compare different indexes, the percentages of the management fees is where you need to look again, because with the compounding, that 1%, you know, I think he mentioned Virgin had a similar one. I don't think they do it anymore, but they had a similar fund to the Vanguard one, but the management fee was 2%. So he done, and the Vanguard one's less than 1%, I think. Yeah. So over time, when you do the maths, you're spending a lot of money just on management fees for the same thing. So these are things that you need to look into and look at, you know, because obviously Andrew Hallams is very, very specific and in detail and fastidious about the numbers. Yeah. You know, that percentage, that 0.5 percentage, as we should be. Yeah. You know, because like, again, on like a normal level, it's like, you normally pay higher interest on credit cards, and you look at the interest rates in the country now. Do you know what I mean? They're so low. So what you want to try and do is beat the interest rate if you can through your investments. But as well, you want to watch out the management fees on those investments that you're making. Again, going back to fund managers and all this kind of stuff. So look, man, very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Just quickly, gold. This is a question for the viewers. Is gold a good investment?
Controversial.
Because there's a stat here. $1 of gold invested in 1801 would be worth $54 in 2016. It's 54 times the amount. I mean, obviously that's a long period of time. $1 invested in the US stock market in 1801, in 2016, that $1 would be worth 16.24 million.
You know what, yeah, this is why I'm saying, sorry, you finished?
Yeah, go.
Yeah, this is why I'm saying, because I don't invest in gold currently. I've got some friends that do, and they speak highly of it. And there's a few people that I follow and that I follow their stuff, and I've seen a lot of people speak highly on gold. So I was quite surprised when I saw this. You know, what he said after inflation, gold has not gained any long-term elevation. I don't know, obviously he's thinking about America. I need to, I don't know what, so this is something that I'm actually, because I haven't invested in gold yet, but I've got some friends that swear blind on it. Right? Yeah. So I'm just intrigued on this, because I was like, okay, he kind of just like, gold is a bad investment. No, he says gold is not an investment. That's actually what he says in the book, which caught me off guard. I was like, right, okay. So I've got, you know. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's interesting.
What's the power of these pages?
I think simplicity, patience, and education, to be fair. Keep it simple, man. Like, we always try and over-engineer things. We always try, and again, going back to these apps and the fraudsters that we have out there, they'll try and make you think, they'll give you enough information that you think you know what you're talking about, and then they'll baffle you with it. And at the end of the day, they're just trying to get your money. So keep it simple. Research indexes. Vanguard's a good place to start. Put your money there, be disciplined and be patient, and think long term. Yeah. I mean, what about for you? What's the power?
Yeah, the power for me, the power of these pages is to think long term and compound interest. Invest in consistently over long enough periods of time can generate significant wealth. We didn't even touch on generational wealth and stuff like that properly.
Because I know we're running out of time a bit. So in the end, he kind of goes through 10 or 9 points, and I'm not going to go through all of them. Again, if you are interested, read the book. It's at the back, so you can go straight to it. But there was 4 that jumped out to me. So the second one is start investing early. You know, you're never too old to start investing. Number 3 was invest in low-cost index funds instead of actively managed funds. That's what we was talking about with the charges and being given bad picks and whatnot, bad advice. Number 6 was create an indexed account no matter where you live, because in the book he talks about different countries you can get it: Canada, Singapore, UK, America. So they're available all over. And then the 9th one was avoid investment schemes and scams that might tickle your greed button. And I think that's what, that's what we need. That's the most, if I'm trying to get a message across, it's like people want to feel like they're smart and they're doing smart things, but they're being taken advantage of. This thing of investing and money has become gamified, where you can just open an app, and even now you have these pretend trading platforms where you can mimic the market. You're not investing with real money or trading with real money, so you think that you're a good investor. But there's no emotion involved, which we spoke about emotion. So or you think you're a good stock trader because you've made 1,000 points on whatever. It's a game. So I'll say it again, avoid investment schemes and scams, and I'll include stocks as well, scams that might tickle your greed button or feed your ego. So that's what I'll say.
Yeah, okay. Right, star rating. What are you giving this book out of 5?
Out of 5. And it's changed, but I don't care. It's a 5.
It's a 5.
It wasn't a 5 when I started. Yeah, it wasn't a 5 when I started, but it was a 4. So
okay.
So 5. Yeah, man.
5.
Again, yeah, this book's helped me. Like, it's legitimately helped me in my life.
Okay, I'm conflicted with this book, with my star rating, because the information in this book is so valuable.
Feed into the gas, bro.
No, I can't. I've got my number written here. The information in this book is so valuable, but the read was...
Seriously?
I didn't like the read, man. Okay. There was so much... It was so confusing at times. He's talking about percentage here. If you leave it in this, it goes up by 6%. And then if you do this, you got another 4%. And there's just so many numbers. And I wouldn't call myself a maths guy, but I'm okay with maths.
Can I just quickly say...
Go on.
Because I thought maths is not my thing.
Yeah.
But I found all his charts... Very simple, very easy to read.
They were simple to read, the charts, but then the explanation was, yeah, for me, I didn't enjoy the read.
Okay.
So I'm going to give it a 2.5 as a book.
Tyler.
As a book.
Blasphemy. No, you can't do that. No. Come again, bruv. No, you're not doing that. No, you're not doing that. No. It's the first time. No.
Yeah,
No,
I have to. The value in the books, the gems, is a 5. I agree with you on that. But the read itself, man, I struggled to read this book, man. I really struggled because I wasn't enjoying it. Difficulty rating.
Sorry, I'm still processing that. What? So it's a difficulty rating. It's a 2. It wasn't that difficult. It wasn't that difficult. A 2.
Diff 2.
You got to talk off camera.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
For me, again, I found it like a hard read because so much numbers. 3.5.
Okay.
3.5. So yeah, that's how we have it. Different views on this book. Great value. I didn't like the read. Mr. Fly did. Next book.
I loved the read. Didn't like it, I loved the read.
Next episode, we are reviewing Bhagavad Gita. And yeah, we'll get into that more. But this is The Power of Pages.
And we review books.